According to the Handbook of Etiquette for Ladies in the Victorian age, never introduce your own affairs for the amusement of the company. Such discussions cannot be interesting to others, and the probability is that the most patient listener is laying the foundation for some tale to make you appear ridiculous. Well, according to Arnold, played by the late Gary Coleman in the sitcom Different Strokes, "What you talking about, Willis?" Aloha and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to VICTOBER. I just wanted to show you first that this is a fascinator hat which was popular during the Victorian era for women, and it was worn on the top of the head with a bow. So I thought I'd take it off to show you my new haircut. I'm Marilyn M., the baby boomer booktuber, if you don't know me yet, and welcome back to my channel. VICTOBER is one of my favorite read-alongs, and it's not because I've read a lot of Victorian literature, quite the opposite, but because it got me back into reading Victorian literature. So it's a month-long celebration on Booktube, and it's hosted by three wonderful booktubers: Katie at Books and Things, Kate Howe, and LucytheReader. And their introduction videos will be down below. Their announcement videos, rather, will be down below in the description. And it comes with challenges, and I think I was able to finish most of the challenges with my scaled back VICTOBER this year. And it's scaled back because September was a rough year. My daughter lost her boxer dog of 12 and a half years old, and he had been living with us for 3 years. And if anybody remembers my earlier videos where there was a dog in the ocean, that was him. So I don't know if they're still around, but I'm going to see if there's there. I might put one up just as a memorial toward him. But let's get to the challenges. Kate's challenge is to read a Victorian sensation novel. And for that, I have to look back into September to a book I didn't get to read. And that was Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. And last month was Subgenre September. And one of the prompts was to read a sensation novel, or to read any subgenre. And I'm so interested in reading this, but I had a hard time last month, as we know. So I am going to try to read this month because I'm very interested in mysteries, and this has a mystery in it. So I really want to get to this, if possible. I might have to do it with a buddy read because, I don't know, I get a little intimidated by chunkers. So that's my plan for Kate's prompt. So Katie's challenge is to read a Victorian book set in the countryside and or the city. Now, I've had an interesting experience with this book also in July when I picked up Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. It was Jane Austen July. And part of this novel takes place in Bath, which is a city in England. And I've been to that city. Now, what happened with this was that I was reading it from the library. I had to bring it back from the library. It's in two parts. The first part takes place all in Bath, and the second part takes place in Northanger Abbey. And when I had to bring back the book to the library, I bought my own copy, which I thought was just a regular book, timeless classic. But it's actually one of those books that Amazon sells with very small font, just printed by someone who wants to make a buck. And I don't, like I said before, I don't mind people making a buck, but be upfront about it, and they weren't. And the font is just too small, but I was very lucky recently, because I have Amazon Prime, to see it for free on my Prime Reading. So I'm going to read it on my Kindle. But I wanted to show you that this actually satisfies more than one prompt, and I'll get to that later. But it's set in a city, at least part of the time. So that's Northanger Abbey. Lucy's challenge is to read a Victorian book with a female main character. And again, this is told, now I remember her name, Catherine. Yeah, her name was Catherine, and Mr. Tilney. So it's in her viewpoint. But there's also another book that I'm getting to that's written in a woman's viewpoint. I really enjoyed the first part of Northanger Abbey. So I might have to read the whole thing from the beginning. But yes, so that satisfies a woman's point of view. But I have another one. So there's a group challenge, which is read a popular Victorian book you haven't yet read. However you define the word popular is up to you. It could be popular now, popular on Booktube, popular in the Victorian period itself. For that, I saw that there was two books. Wilkie Collins was very popular in the Victorian period. In fact, I was reading an article about all of the novels that were bestsellers in the Victorian period. Though I didn't see Women in White, I saw The Moonstone, and I saw a lot of his other books. And I think one other book also fits this prompt that I'm getting to. And that is Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is my second Elizabeth Gaskell book, and it's my first in another book that I'll get to later. But this, unfortunately, I also was duped again, and this one was really a beautiful cover, and it says Dover Thrift Editions. I thought it was a real press, but it's not, and it has the same small print. But I'm going to try to get through this because I really, I read North and South, and though I didn't love it, I liked it. And I want to see if I'm going to like this, because someone told me to start here with Elizabeth Gaskell, which I didn't. And it's a sensitive and moving portrait of a Victorian town captured at a transitional period of English society. And it appeared in serials in Charles Dickens' magazine Household Words, which is very interesting to me too. From what it really also fits the prompt of, not the prompt, but the something that I'm doing as a project, which is to read about older women. And it recounts the events and activities and the loves of a group of spinsters and widows who struggle in genteel poverty to maintain their standards of propriety, decency, and kindness, which sounds delicious to me. So I'm going to read this probably first. Now, what is the other challenge? Okay, so those are the challenges, but I have another book. And the other book is my first George Eliot, which is Silas Marner. Now, by George Eliot. And I think I read this like 50, 60 years ago, because it sounds very familiar to me. And for some strange reason, the Cliff Notes came with this book from the library. And it wasn't me. I promise you that I never buy Cliff Notes or would even think of it. But because this book doesn't have much of an introduction or tell me what it's about, though I remember it's about a loner who lives in a village, and he was either suspected of a crime or he wasn't accepted in the beginning because he was strange and was prone to fits. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Something happens in his life after that. So I don't need this Cliff Notes. But I think I'll just keep them just in case. Now the next challenge is a bonus challenge. Read aloud a section of a Victorian work or have it read to you. I don't read audiobooks very often, though of course I'm starting to change that as I became a booktuber. But I love poetry, and in fact I started my writing career writing poetry, slam poetry, regular poetry. So I came across a Victorian poet named Eliza Cook. Now she's very interesting, and I'll tell you why. She was born in the Victorian period, December 24th, 1818, and she was an English author and poet associated with the Chartist movement. And she was a proponent of political freedom for women and believed in the ideology of self-improvement through education, which, as a former teacher, I really believe in reading, for one, as an education in itself. And she believed in something called leveling up. And all of you millennials out there, it's not the song Level Up, but it kind of is. It made her hugely popular with the working class public in both England and America. But let me just tell you what Chartism is, because I looked it up. I wasn't sure, of course. It was a working class movement which emerged in 1836 and was most active between 1838 and 1848. And the aim of the Chartists was to gain political rights and influence for the working classes. And it got its name from the People's Charter that listed the 6 major aims of the movement. But she started writing poetry at age 17, and some of her poetry might not be considered to be feminist poetry. But I came across this poem, and I thought I'd read it to you as my bonus prompt, and it's called The Old Armchair. And I'll just say, have you ever had a piece of furniture that really meant something to you? I remember a rocking chair that I had to rock my 4 children in. And so anyway, this is a poem that I will read to you by Eliza Cook. I love it, and who shall dare to chide me for loving that old armchair? I've treasured it long as a sainted prize. I've bedewed it with tears and embalmed it with sighs. 'Tis bound by 1,000 bands in my heart. Not a tie will break, not a link will start. Would ye learn the spell? A mother sat there, and a sacred thing is that old armchair. In childhood's hour, I linger near the hallowed seat with a listening ear, and gentle words that mother would give to fit me to die and teach me to live. She told me shame would never be tied, with truth for my creed and God for my guide. She taught me to lisp my earliest prayer as I knelt beside that old armchair. I sat and I watched her many a day, when her eyes grew dim and her locks were gray. And I almost worshipped her when she smiled and turned from her Bible to bless her child. Years rolled on, but the last one sped. My idol was shattered, my earth star fled. I learned how much the heart could bear when I saw her die in that old armchair. 'Tis past, but I gaze on it now with quivering breath and throbbing brow. 'Twas there she nursed me, 'twas there she died, and memory flows with lava tide. Say it's folly and deem me weak, while the scalding drops start down my cheeks. But I love it, and cannot tear my soul from a mother's old armchair. I hope you like this poem as much as I did. It's not exactly the feminist type of poem I thought she would read, but it really got me, you know? So I hope you like it. And if you like this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And please, the only prompt you have to do to participate in VICTOBER is to read one Victorian novel. And I have one extra novel that I didn't talk about because I'm not sure I'm going to get to it. But it's one of the favorites, and it's Villette by Charlotte Bronte. And it's about her life and her experience as a student in Brussels. And I heard it's very modernist and goes through a lot of modern themes. But it is a chunker, and I don't think I'm going to get to it. But if you want to buddy read with me next month maybe, or the end of the month, if I get to most of these books, I would be happy to do that. So until we meet again, my friend, aloha.